I once had 2 job interviews in North Carolina. I lived in New York at the time and decided to drive down instead of flying to save money. My job at the time was terrible, and these 2 new opportunities could be a fresh start. They were corporate office jobs with great benefits and good salaries. Plus, the weather in North Carolina would be much better than the cold of New York. I set off on Thursday night, planning to arrive by Friday morning for the interviews. Since I had to work on Thursday, I hit the road as soon as I got off. I stopped by my place to grab my suitcase and some other essentials, then said goodbye to my family. It was an 8-hour drive ahead of me, and I was aiming to get there by 2 a.m. To stay awake, I drank 3 cups of coffee during the first few hours. For a while, I was good, but running on fumes, no amount of coffee was going to keep me going. I hadn't slept much the night before, stressing over the interviews. After a long, busy day at work, the last thing I wanted to do was drive for 9 hours. It was late at night, and I had about 2 hours left in the drive. There were very few cars on the road. I was starting to feel really sleepy, but I knew most of the drive was behind me. Suddenly, on the side of the highway, I saw a man in a suit standing there, not walking, not moving. He was facing my car, and as I passed, I saw his face turning to follow me. I said out loud, "What the heck?" It was truly bizarre. I almost contemplated turning around and asking if he needed a ride. He was in the middle of the highway in a suit at 12:30 a.m. To keep my mind awake, I came up with stories about what might have happened, like maybe his girlfriend kicked him out of the car. But then, something beyond frightening happened. It was only about 10 minutes later that I saw another man on the side of the road, also in a suit, also just standing there. I slowed down to pull over and possibly ask if everything was okay. Maybe offer a ride. I don't know what I was thinking, but when I was on the shoulder, almost to a stop, I looked in the rearview mirror and turned around completely. The man was gone, as if he had just disappeared. I stepped on the gas and got back on the road. I was losing it. I needed to stop for another coffee. I had about an hour and a half to go, so I stopped at the first pit stop I could find and bought a medium coffee. I drank a few sips, but as I was sitting in the rest area gas station parking lot, I spotted a man in a suit again, standing under a light post. It was the same man. This time, I got a clearer view of his face. He looked like a middle-aged white man, short dark brown hair, clean-shaven, and a neutral expression. But it was the way he was facing my car again that freaked me out. I turned the car on and got out of there without looking back. I needed to complete the drive, but the coffee wasn't helping. I felt like I was going to pass out behind the wheel. I wasn't going to make it, so I pulled off the highway and parked in a random parking lot. I angled the seat all the way down and tried to go to sleep. As tired as I was, I couldn't help but be scared in this empty parking lot. Scared that if I opened my eyes, I would see that man in the suit again. I was drifting into sleep when something made me wake up again. I looked around the outside of my car, scared I was going to see him. I looked out each window and then the front windshield, and it was clear. Then I looked in the rearview mirror and felt my soul leave my body for a second because there I saw, for a second, a person in the back seat. I'm sure it was the man in the suit again, but I didn't look long enough because I opened the door, screamed, and fell backward out of the car. As I crawled back, I kept screaming until I finally got up, looked inside the car, and saw nobody. The back seat was empty. I realized my mind had been playing tricks on me all night. There was no man in a suit. I was just completely exhausted and needed to sleep. I got back in my car, my heart racing. I turned the car back on, finished my coffee, and drove the rest of the way. By the time I checked into the hotel and got to the room, I fell into the bed and passed out right away. The next day, my first interview was at 11 a.m., so I didn't get much sleep, but I felt somewhat recharged. However, the second my interviewer walked out to greet me, I froze. My interviewer looked identical to the image of that man in the suit I kept hallucinating the night before. I know the interviewer noticed me freeze up. I tried to recover, but it set the tone for the rest of the interview. I was completely nervous and out of it. I felt like I was in a dream. I left that interview with only an hour to get ready for the next one. My next interviewer was a woman, and I did much better with this one because I actually got the job. I still work here and live in North Carolina now. My old therapist told me that she thinks the stress of mentally preparing for the interviews, mixed with the lack of sleep, caused me to hallucinate. The main cause of my fear and stress was picturing who would be interviewing me, so I hallucinated a man in a suit. It sounds plausible, but it doesn't change how downright horrific the whole ordeal was. If you're enjoying the video, please subscribe the channel for future videos, and like and share with your friends. I was driving in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania, one night, trying to avoid traffic on my way home. It was probably a little past midnight, and the road was basically deserted, just the way I like it. I was listening to my usual podcast on the radio when a ding came from my car, alerting me that I was low on fuel. I put a pit stop into my Maps app for the nearest gas station, which was a little ways up the secluded road. About 5 minutes later, I pulled into the gas station on the right. It was the only parking lot for miles, as this road was basically nothing but woods on each side. The gas station was some generic, no-name place. I pulled up to the pump and noticed a man filling up the tank of his old beater pickup truck. He was looking at me as I walked past him and into the shop. Inside, I bought a coffee and paid cash for my gas. When I came back outside, I noticed the man at the pump getting into his pickup truck and driving away. After a couple of minutes of filling up my tank, I got back in my car and continued my drive. But not even a minute after leaving the station, I noticed the same pickup truck from the gas station, sitting on the side of the road next to the woods, turned off. I kept driving, looking in my rearview mirror to see if it would turn on, but it didn't. I turned my podcast back on and continued my drive. A few minutes passed, and I heard another ding from my car. My dashboard screen showed that one of my tires was very low. I slowed down and started hearing a wobbling sound. I opened a window and knew right away I had a flat tire. It was my rear driver's side tire. I didn't think I hit anything. I would have felt it. The thought came to my head. What if that guy at the gas station slashed it? I took out my phone and was looking up the number for my roadside assistance company on Google when I heard the sound of a car or truck engine down the road behind me. Oddly, I didn't see any headlights. It was just pitch black down there. Then the sound of the engine suddenly stopped, and it was quiet again. I went to my trunk to grab the SOS flashlight out of my toolbox. My dad had given me one as a Christmas present a few years back. I grabbed the long light rod, turned it on, and aimed it down the road. I saw the reflection of a truck's headlights pulled over on the side of the road about 200 feet away. It looked like that pickup truck again. I gasped and ran into the woods, ducking behind a big bush and tree. I took out my phone and called 911. I heard the sound of the truck down the road starting up again, and this time the headlights were on. I heard and saw through the bush the truck pull up next to my car. After a short moment of silence, a man yelled out, "Do you need some help?" I knew better than to answer. The 911 operator picked up, and I whispered my location into the phone, saying someone slashed my tire and that I thought the person who did it was right there, following me. The operator asked a bunch of standard questions, asking me to describe the man and his truck. I heard the truck door open and close. I told the operator over the phone that the man got out of his truck. She told me to remain hidden in the woods if I thought he was a threat. She asked if I could see if he was armed, and that's when the call disconnected. I had lousy cell reception there. I waited, hoping she would call me back. I'm sure she was trying to, but it wouldn't go through. I heard the sound of another passing car on the road. It was slowing down, then I heard talking. It was the voice of another man. I crept closer to the edge of the woods to get a view of the road. I saw the man from the pickup truck standing next to another stopped pickup truck in the middle of the road. He was talking to a person in the truck. I overheard the creepy man coming up with this fake explanation of what was going on. At that moment, I rushed into the road, yelling for help. "I don't know him," I said. Both the man in the truck and the man who followed me looked over at me. I said to the man in the truck that this man slashed my tire and followed me here. The man in the truck's reaction was to look at the creepy man with a disturbed look. The creepy man denied having done anything to my tires and claimed he'd never seen me before. At the same time, he hurried away to his pickup truck, backed up until he cleared both of our vehicles and drove off. The man in the other pickup truck got out and examined my flat tire, then offered me a ride into town. I told him I had police officers on the way. Sure enough, within a few minutes, a cop car with its lights on pulled up beside us. The man vouched for me when I told the officer about the other man. The police officer said he'd go down to the gas station and request to see the camera footage to see if it caught the pickup driver actually slashing my tire. The officer took my info and waited with me while I waited for the roadside assistance company. The tow truck driver gave me a ride to a shop where my dad picked me up. I never heard from that police officer, so I guess he didn't see anything in that video footage. It's scary how close I was to probably being abducted. It was the most horrific, haunting night of my life. It still sends shivers down my spine. I'm 28 years old, and my boyfriend, Todd, lives in a different state. We take turns visiting each other, but I usually end up going to see him more often because he has his own place, and I still live with my sister. I was heading up there for a week because it was winter break, and I had some time off since I'm a teacher. I packed up my old 2009 Hyundai Sonata, which I bought from my sister, and set off. The further north I got, the more snow there was on the ground. My car wasn't really built for driving in the snow, and it was starting to snow really hard. There were blizzard warnings earlier, but Todd and I agreed it would be better to try and beat the blizzard tonight rather than come tomorrow when the roads would be full of snow. After stopping for a quick sandwich and some coffee at a small diner, the waitress, who I'd been chatting with, told me there was no way I should be on the roads right now. She recommended a few hotels and motels in the area. Then, after she walked away, a guy sitting at the bar spun around in his chair and said to me, "There's a motel right up the road from here." I put the motel's name into my phone, and it said it was literally 5 minutes away. He said it was nice and cheap, so I could just get a quick night's rest and get back on the road tomorrow. He seemed to have overheard my whole conversation with the waitress. He was just sitting there at the bar with a beer. I'd never seen someone go to a diner just to drink. I didn't even know diners served alcohol, but people up by Todd are a little weird to me since I grew up in the city. The man introduced himself as Toby, and I gave him a fake name, saying I was Michelle. For the rest of my time there, Toby was half facing me in his spinning bar stool, but I wasn't really looking to keep talking to him. So I looked away out the window at the snow until the waitress gave me my check. Then I said goodbye to them both as I left. In that half hour I spent in the diner, the snow had accumulated at least an inch. I needed to get to that motel ASAP. I drove slow and was at the motel in a few minutes, maybe 10. There were a couple of cars in the lot. It looked like a cheap motel, which was all I needed. I didn't want to waste money anyway. I went to the front desk and asked for a room for the night. I think I paid around $50, and the man at the desk handed me a key to one of the downstairs rooms. I walked back outside to my car to get my stuff and bring it inside. It was a tiny little room with tacky wallpaper, a queen-sized bed, and a red carpet. It was fine for the night. I tried to FaceTime Todd, but there was no reception at all. The motel had Wi-Fi, but the password was probably at the front desk. So I put my shoes back on and hurried outside through the cold snow to the front desk. On my way there, I noticed there was a new car in the parking lot. I saw someone sitting inside of it, but I didn't take the time to look at who it could have been. The man at the front desk emotionlessly pointed to the free Wi-Fi sign with the password. I typed it in. Took a minute, but I was connected. I went back to my room in a hurry, locked the door, and FaceTimed Todd. Even with Wi-Fi, the connection was so bad. I could see his face, but it would freeze frame for like 5 seconds, and his voice would cut out as well. I was able to at least communicate with him that I was safe in the motel. We decided to just text instead because the FaceTime wasn't really working. We were texting back and forth for a few minutes when I heard something come from the bathroom. I leaned forward and saw that the bathroom door was shut. Was it shut before? I didn't remember. I texted Todd that I heard something in the bathroom, and I started freaking out because I realized I ran to the front desk without locking the motel room door. He asked if the door locks by itself. I said I don't think so, but now I also don't remember if I left the door cracked open or not. He told me to get up and check the door to see if it locks by itself when it closes and to bring the key with me. I got up, put my shoes on, and saw that the door had a traditional twisting lock that moved with the knob from the inside or the key on the outside. I opened the door to confirm this, but I noticed instantly the extra set of footprints leading to my door. These footprints came from that car that I saw someone sitting in, and nobody was in that car anymore. I felt like screaming, but instead, I closed the door to my room and ran to the front desk. I cried to the man that there's an intruder in my room. The front desk worker was not some huge jack dude, so I don't think he was wanting to go confronting anyone. He told me to wait in here and he called someone. I thought he was calling the police, but instead, he started speaking in some other language. I think he was calling a friend or associate. He hung up and told me again to just sit tight in here with him. I was standing in a position where I could see out the glass down to my room, and I let out a shriek when I saw the door to my room open, and that man, Toby, from the diner, walked to his car. We locked eyes for a second before he got in his car and backed out onto the unplowed roads, disappearing slowly down the road. The front desk worker's associate or friend or whoever it was arrived a while later. He was this big guy who didn't speak English. I don't know what they were saying to each other, but the front desk worker told me he would give me a different room free of charge to make me feel better. I didn't feel better, but I didn't have any other options for places to stay at this point. I took the new key, and the two men helped me move my stuff into the new room. Todd offered to come here, but I told him not to. It would be too long and too dangerous to drive in the dark in the snow. The next morning, the streets were somewhat plowed enough to get through the rest of the drive to Todd's. Looking back, I don't like how that motel worker probably didn't call the cops because he didn't want his motel to get any negative attention. I called that diner to warn them about that man. I have no trust in strangers anymore, not after this.